The other evening I asked Granny what spring of the year, you know, what did she do when she was a child? What memories come back to her when she thought about spring of the year? Well, when Granny was pretty young, the state took the area where their garden was to build the 4-lane. The 4-lane that goes through Murphy, that's where her garden, it went right through the middle of Granny's parents' garden. So she didn't have really many memories about getting out in the garden and planting and things like that. But she said every spring of the year, her mother, Gazzy, would go out and hunt poke salad. And she would fix it, and Granny said she was just a picky eater, so she never liked it at all. But Granny's sister Faye and her husband Woodrow was just crazy about it. Granny said they'd mix it up with their eggs and eat it with eggs, and they just thought it was the best thing around, you know, best thing going. And Granny Gazzy loved it too. So another thing, though, that Granny remembered that wasn't so good about spring was that was the time of the year that Granny Gazzy would make them all take a spring tonic. You know, after the long winter of being inside, being cooped up, and not being out in the sunshine, and not having fresh vegetables to eat, a lot of people believe in spring tonics. So Granny Gazzy's spring tonic was castor oil. So she believed they all should take a dose of castor oil to help them get their blood thinned out and get their bodies ready for the coming spring and the coming summer. So Granny said I would get so worked up about it, and I dreaded it so bad that I couldn't take my dose in front of anybody. I had to go around the side of the house and take it. I couldn't let nobody watch me drink it. And I said, well, if you went around the side of the house, why didn't you just pour it out? You know, why didn't you just sneak and pour it out? And Granny said, oh, I knew better than to try that trick. So spring tonic, you'll often hear people talk about that in Appalachia. Not so much today, but more in days gone by. But it's still, every once in a while, you'll hear people talk about it. They do talk about eating greens a lot. So like the poke salad or the creasy greens or those early fresh greens. It thins your blood and gets your body to going after a long winter. This is what the Dictionary of Smoky Mountain English said about it. So a spring tonic is a noun, a home medicine taken in early spring and purported to purge the system and thicken the blood. That says thicken the blood. I always thought it was supposed to thin the blood, so I don't know about that. It most often consists of sulfur and molasses, sometimes with whiskey or an herb such as ginseng added. So see, I've never heard of that. But 1982, Powers and Hannah Catalucci. Spring tonic, 1 teacup of molasses, 3 tablespoons of sulfur. Stir and take some for spring tonic. 1992, Cavender Folk Hematology. During the spring, a spring tonic was necessary to thin the blood. See, that's what I thought. Thin the blood, and more importantly, to cleanse or purify the blood of the impurities or poison accumulated during the winter. In fact, cleansing the blood of waste materials serves to thin the blood as well, since the waste material is the thickening agent. 1997, Andrews Mountain Victuals. Early spring here in the valley, in every cabin, we youngins could always count on our grandmas and mother to line us up and give us a spoonful of their own special remedy, spring tonic. Other spring tonics I've heard people talk about, I've heard people say they used yellow root. They made a tea and that was their spring tonic. I've got a video about yellow root, so I'll link to that so you can see that. Bill Burnett, he said, my favorite spring tonic is ramps and branch lettuce. Chopped, salted lightly, and killed with hot bacon grease. Take a plateful with cornbread and a glass of sweet milk. Another tonic we could count on was poke salad, accompanied by the same sides. My dad was a strong advocate of Indian River tonic, taken all winter long. It tasted like a rusty nail, so it must have been an iron supplement, and many times I had to be held and forced to take my tablespoonful, as it was terrible, but at least I got to see my 3 sisters choke down theirs. Only a brother, right, could say that. I guess misery does love company. Sam Inslee, he said our spring tonic was a broken dose of Epsom salts. A broken dose was a double dose, 2 teaspoonfuls of salt dissolved in a snuff glass of water. I remember drinking it as fast as I could because it was so bitter. After drinking it, you had to play close to the porch because, as my grandmother said, it gave you a good working out. Another spring tonic you'll hear people talk about is Sassafras Tea. So here's a little bit I'm going to read you. It says, drink Sassafras Tea during the month of March and you won't need a doctor. That's an old mountain saying. Sass tea, my lord, yes, we made it. Frank Presley, hardy scion of the western North Carolina mountain country, was remembering the heady growing up days of his youth on 4,000-foot-high Cullowhee Mountain. We get the roots of sassafras, and my mom would boil it for medicine. Some people like to drink it as tea. They all said it would thin the blood and refresh the spirit, but to me, that dark red drink had a sickening taste. Sassafras tea is still popular across the Appalachian South. Dick Frymeyer of Kentucky is one of its great advocates. He says that not only will sassafras tea pick you up, chewing on a sassafras root will calm you down. Besides that, Frymeyer, he claims the versatile root will whiten your teeth, and to top it all, he says if you want to give your flower plants more vigor, sprinkle some strong sassafras tea on them. The hardy pioneers pouring down the great Philadelphia wagon road to settle the Appalachian used many plants, leaves, roots, and barks for hot and cold beverages, but sassafras was the most popular. There was a little ditty used to promote the sassafras tonic in the early days. In the spring of the year, when the blood is too thick, there is nothing so fine as a sassafras stick. It tones up the liver and strengthens the heart, and to the whole system new life doth impart. And that was a little excerpt that I read from Smokehouse Ham, Spoon Bread, and Scoopernong Wine by Joseph Dabney. If you've never got that book, it's a cookbook, but it's got so much more than that. It's a great book. So Pap and Granny never made sassafras tea that I remember. We usually play every year for the, it's like a Cherokee Indian festival in Marble, North Carolina, here where I live, just up the road. And we usually play there every year for this little festival they have. And there's always a gentleman there selling or he don't really sell it, he's just giving it away, but sassafras tea. And I always make sure to go get me a little cup of it. If you've never tasted sassafras tea, it sort of tastes like root beer, kinda, sorta. It's what it puts you in the mind of. But I never remember Granny and Pap making sassafras tea, nor making me take a tonic of anything. I didn't grow up doing that. Now, in recent years, people have began to say that you are no longer advised to drink sassafras tea, that it can be dangerous, so humans are not supposed to drink it anymore. Well, the other side of that is people say, well, as long as you don't ingest, if you're not ingesting large quantities, it won't hurt you. You know, people's been drinking it for generations. So if you decide to drink sassafras tea, you'll have to make up your own mind about that, about which side to believe in. But like I said, I've never took a spring tonic. But boy, just seeing the mountains with all their blooms and their new growth of green, you can kind of see the green begin to grow up the mountaintops and up the ridges, and the maples, the red of them, all that, and the beautiful flowers, all that is a spring tonic for me, for sure, even though I never really took one by mouth. All that beauty just gives me a pep in my step, I guess you would say. So I hope you'll leave a comment and let me know, did you grow up having to take a spring tonic? And if so, what was it? What did your parents or your grandmother or whoever it was, what did they give you for a spring tonic? But mostly I just hope you'll drop back by often as I celebrate Appalachia.